Quantum Surge, Book 1, The Yankin Decatur Series. Written by Philip Nolan. Narrated by CJ McAllister. Chapter 3. Kraken Approach. 2178 CE. Approach B28.2.33. Astral Service Lagrange 2 Port. Colony World Kraken. Kraken and its heavy metal moon form a natural gravitic lens, directing the chaotic waves of their stellar system into a small channel where the bedlam of universe, planet, and satellite cancel. Here lies a region of calm gravitational flow and an interstellar military port known as Lagrange 2, or more simply L2, the colony's largest harbor. A major military and commercial port, as well as a shipbuilding center housing over 23,000 workers and their families. On this day, all eyes within the port focused on the arrival of the commercial container ship limping into port. Some expressed amazement, wondering under what laws of physics it managed to link, much less navigate home through the great gravitic chaos of the surrounding universe. Slip-drive ships are known for beautiful, gracefully flowing lines, loveliness derived not from artistic expression, but demanded by the need to minimize link-wave turbulence and simplify field uniformity calculations during flight. Those in the port watched the apparition-like ship limp into the close confines of the port. It risked spreading its repellent field far ahead in a bid to stabilize the craft and reach dock without discredit. The resulting iridescence flared beautifully to the casual observer, but what a pitiful show their effort made to experienced spacers' eyes. The ship's outer shell had been savaged, a 3-deck section of her rim gone, with a great tear rending it so badly that even now it vented a faint stream of air, its particles fluorescing within its spin-dizzy field as they swirled about a jagged framing girder, ripped out and projecting from her wound into raw vacuum like a defiant, uplifted finger. The gravitic forces of the universe transformed the normally soft blue iridescence of a healthy slip-drive field into a churning maelstrom of colors, sparkling as they swirled about the wound, draining life-giving atmosphere and power into the interstellar vacuum. Many a professional eye wondered what magic enabled the pitiful, ravaged ship to approach the docks and maneuver, safely avoiding the crowded outer docks and automated ion cannons designed to defend against meteor threat to the installation. An archaic identification friend or foe, IFF, pulse burst out from the damaged vessel on an even more ancient sliding frequency photon laser packet. The station's automatics didn't blink an electron, but accepted the archaic ID and shunted the freighter to an off-station dock, safely distant from the busy port traffic. The ship pulled in with a rugged smoothness, nestling into the docking bay, and no sooner had it settled in than a captain's gig emerged, taking a direct path to commercial fleet offices as Astral Service arrival protocol demanded. Yankin Decatur went directly to the nearest lift and took it up 157 floors to the Astral Administrative offices. Gave one last longing look at the beauty of the blue-green world they orbited and the elusive freedom promised by Kraken. All gone. He knew all hope was lost the moment he entered the COO's darkened suite. Jack Bastian launched a quick but thankfully brief glare as he entered. Deep annoyance, bordering on disgust, shrouded the old man's scarred face. Decatur knew where he got the scars. Everyone did. The early days of interstellar flight were not the cushy jaunts of today, and the miners' uprising of 21-22 had seen the fires of hell released into the cold vacuum of space. Decatur hesitated, ready to receive Bastien's barrage, but instead was greeted by a nondescript hand wave, motioning him to an ornately carved hardwood chair set before the desk. The man obviously couldn't bear to gaze at the abomination standing before him. Decatur couldn't see the documents and recordings Bastien studied, but knew they wouldn't be good. Bastien mumbled to himself as he reviewed the data, slowly shaking his head as he moved from item to item, while letting fly sporadic, low, growling sounds without lifting eyes from the reports, until the corporate officer exploded into a sharp query. "Captain Decatur, do you realize how much we've lost in just this past quarter?" "No, don't answer. You don't know. Few do. Nearly $5 trillion worth of assets. Multiply that by 6 to get cargo value." He ended with a flip of his hand, his eyes never leaving the desk. "Insurance still pays for cargo and ships, but we are losing ground rapidly, and it's not from rising insurance costs. We can pass those on to our customers. We cannot, however, replace experienced spacers. Your log here says they took most of your crew and—" Decatur refused to let him continue. "Sir, I had little choice." Cold gray eyes of the COO lifted, drilling directly into his for the first time. "Captain Decatur, I'm a busy man. You will hear me out. No more interruptions unless I request a reply. Says here you were boarded by Marines, yet somehow managed to recover your command and survive to make it back to sit here before me." Suddenly shuffling past a few folders, he continued. "I understand they took most of your crew, leaving you to return with barely a third of your people in a ship horribly disfigured. I read your log, so don't waste my time. Tell me what isn't in this report. What in God's universe were you thinking?" Decatur took a moment to calm himself, even as he wondered why the old man was playing him. Still, he owed it to his people to deliver the story properly, placing blame where it was due. "We were on an approach vector to Earth docking orbit, having just dropped below superlight for entry. There was an exceptional level of gravitic wave chop along the inbound course I'd taken. That was intentional. I selected that vector with a hope the sector would be empty of any military pickets on station. Even mil-spec ships don't enjoy slow patrol in a region of high gravitic chop. Less than an hour into final phase entry, we received a query ping from a fleet destroyer. I was relieved to discover it was an NAU registry, but I was immediately surprised to see our identification reply invoking a command to drop down to relative stationary and await boarding. They refused to give a reason for the order. I had no choice but to match vector and speed. They boarded armed, didn't even go through the farce of an inspection. Their Marines produced enlistment forms, already personalized for each of my crew, and began shuffling my people off under armed guard onto their destroyer. A scuffle on board the destroyer broke out as our men were passing a second party that I now suspect was a prize crew heading for my ship. Harsh words were exchanged and blows quickly followed. In the confusion, 6 of my people managed to make it back on board, sealing the airlock behind them. At that point, I realized the NAU captain intended to take more than a few spacers. He saw my entire vessel as a prize. Determination rested heavily in my crew's eyes. They weren't about to be impressed into an NAU enlistment. I used the distraction to jump the Marines' lieutenant before most of them could bring weapons to bear. The NAU Marines that remained on board fought hard. They weren't about to surrender. I regret to say, no NAU survivors remain on my command. I used a remote to blow the hard lines holding our ship. A lucky swell jostled us, and the resulting collision shut down their tractor. They'd already offloaded most of our cargo, so when I hit the drive, she quickly went into superlight, being light-weighted and agile, although a bit imbalanced at this point from the cargo transfer. Bastien growled. "A lucky swell, huh?" Decatur knew he was committed to course. "Aye, sir. It was pure luck. I regret to report that I struck and damaged their targeting and navigational sensor array during the initial maneuver. Still, they managed the release of a smart torp. Must have been pure reaction on their part, since it impacted before its AI was able to boot, arm, and direct the missile to a vulnerable point. Still, our damage was, well, you can see the result. They would have run us down in short order had we not intentionally disabled their communications and remote navigation centers. Physically, the trip back was a bit challenging. We managed only because I have a good crew." Decatur's eyes went to Bastien to see if the COO was listening, and slammed full force into the old man's intense, focused stare. The old man's lips moved, releasing a barely heard grumble that might have been, "Criminal act of war." The captain wasn't about to accept the subject of such an incrimination. He knew his career was over, but there were others to consider. His words were strong as he rose to attention, clearly ringing out to ensure the office AI would record them as he braced himself against the waves of anger pounding through his body. "Sir, I want to commend the actions of my crew, both those waiting in my ship and those who couldn't make it back but gave up their freedom, and some gave their lives, just to give us a chance. The damage to my ship and the loss of my crew are my responsibility, and mine alone." Unexpectedly, the COO didn't say a word, simply stared at the captain for a few moments. Returning attention to his desktop, his lips pursed into a half-snarl as his hand directed the captain to sit. He ignored Decatur as he shuffled through folders, a damning scowl riveted on Bastien's face as he grumbled into the desktop. Beyond the low growl, Bastien didn't reply, much less turn his head to address Decatur. After digging through his folders some more, the words emerged cold, hard, and as sharp as a saber's edge, directed at the still-standing captain. Sit. Cool down, young man, and listen. Your people will be on half pay until repairs are completed. You need not concern yourself on breaking the news to them. Captain Decatur, you are ordered to Palanto City. There's a reception at the Capitol Grounds Museum. You don't have much time. Pick up a change of uniform on the way. You'll need formal dress. Be there by 9 local time this evening. Detailed instructions are now in your assignment portfolio. They won't open until you're on the down leg of the trip. You'll need to agree to and sign the confidentiality wrapper before accessing the details. Ensure you read it thoroughly, young man, and understand what you are signing. You are dismissed. Hurry, and you may just make the shuttle." Old Man Bastien's concentration returned to his desktop before the captain hastily left the office. Decatur was halfway down the corridor before he realized, "Well, I'll be. The old coot dismissed me as Captain Decatur. This might not be so bad after all."